Richter, a mysterious stalker, a seasoned guide through the zone, a friend, appearing when Skiff needs him most. But what if I told you he isn't really there? What if I told you Richter's only a mirage, conjured by the Nosphere? What if he is not a person, but a symptom? Before we dive into the rabbit hole of why Richter might be nothing more than a hallucination, let's talk a little bit about PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and what kind of effects it can have on the human mind. PTSD stems from exposure to traumatic events, combat, loss, near-death experiences. It twists perception, breaks emotional patterns, and sometimes causes the mind to fracture. Victims often suffer from flashbacks, paranoia, emotional numbness, and in severe cases, hallucinations. Now, Skiff isn't your average rookie in the zone. He may be already carrying trauma from his time in the Ukrainian army before his true descent into the zone even began. His story starts with disaster. His home, obliterated by a rogue artifact. Bandits, anomalies, bloodsuckers. He survives them all, chasing answers in the zone that only offers madness in return. In the end, he's ambushed, left for dead in a ditch. But then, Skiff wakes up, a blind dog snarling at his leg. Then, and only then, Richter appears. Hope appears.
I'm your guardian angel. Here's your bolt.
Why the hell would I need a bolt?
Richter doesn't enter, he emerges. Not like a man, but like an answer. And from that moment on, he always seems to show up just in time. When Skiff is lost in the fog, Richter finds the path. When Skiff seems lost and alone, Richter offers direction. When the story threatens to spiral into chaos, Richter stabilizes it. But here's the thing, no one hardly acknowledges him. He rarely interacts with the world in a tangible way. He doesn't barter, doesn't bleed, doesn't even seem to eat or sleep. He only exists in the narrative, but not necessarily in the world. But what if it's not that simple? What if Richter is real, but not always physically there? Maybe the man does exist, out there somewhere in the zone. But what if Skiff isn't always meeting him? Maybe when things get darkest, what Skiff sees isn't the real Richter, but a projection, a copy, a stand-in born from memory, emotion, or the zone's influence. Sometimes it's him, sometimes it's something else wearing his face. But this is where the Nosphere comes in. For those unfamiliar, the Nosphere in Stalker lore is sort of a psychic network. An invisible layer of collective human consciousness hovering over the zone, capable of altering reality throughout thought and emotion. It is what twisted the zone into what it is today. Richter could be the zone's leash, presenting himself as a friend while subtly steering Skiff towards a destiny not of his own making. And think about this. Whenever Skiff faces a major choice or moral conflict, Richter is there. Not forcing a hand, but nudging, suggesting, guiding. A hallucination designed not to comfort, but to manipulate. Like a dream that talks back, like guilt given form, like a shadow of Skiff's own fractured psyche. And maybe that's the most terrifying part, that Richter is Skiff. A projection of the man he wants to be. Or maybe the man he was before the zone devoured him. Let's talk a little bit about mentors. In literature and myth, they're often symbolic. A guide who appears during a transformation. Think Obi-Wan. Think Virgil. Think Morpheus. They arrive when the hero is lost and push them forward. But in stories warped by trauma, the mentor becomes something else. Not a guide to salvation, but a reflection of fracture. In Call of Duty Black Ops, Viktor Reznov is a classic example. A hallucination born from guilt and psychological trauma. He becomes a ghost that haunts Mason, influencing his actions without ever physically being there. A phantom of the mind, warped in ideology. Mason becomes Reznov. Now look at Richter. His mannerisms, calm, composed, cryptic. His knowledge, too perfect. He knows paths through the zone even sees the stalkers don't. His timing, impeccable. He mostly appears only when Skif is isolated, vulnerable, or on the verge of death. There are patterns here, and it's not natural. It's narrative, constructed. You might have noticed something strange too. Richter never changes. Skif bleeds, scars, evolves. Richter is frozen in time. Same coat, same calm tone, same 1,000-yard stares. He's less of a person, more an idea. And then there's the zone itself. The place that doesn't just mutate bodies, it warps minds. The Nosphere feeds off thought. It manifests anomalies from consciousness. It births creatures from fear. So what happens whenever a traumatized mind like Skif, buzzing with fear, guilt, and desperation, enters this psychic soup? It creates Richter. A safety net, a coping mechanism, a delusion, with a purpose. Maybe the zone is using Richter to guide Skif somewhere. Maybe it's manipulating him, like the monolith cultists that hear voices from the Wish Granter. Maybe Richter is the zone's answer to a broken man. And after all, this isn't the only time that we were tricked into a character being in the story that wasn't really there. Depending on whether or not you chose to end Herman's life in the Circa facility, you may have never even seen this take place. If you do decide to take him out, and then join forces with the Ward, he actually comes back into the story. Also, throughout the main story, Strelok will show you how the zone can be manipulated by demonstrating a beautiful lush oasis in the zone. Somewhere safe, a place Skif can maybe call home. Only for Strelok to then turn off the manifestation, and the oasis turns into a dilapidated cabin with all the life ripped away in an instant. But let's focus back on Richter. And here's the real kicker. Richter usually only appears when Skif is alone. In group moments, radio chatter, friendly outpost, he's mostly gone. Besides from some conversations at a few key points in the game. Now you might say, what about that moment in the story whenever Skif and Richter are fighting for their life against the monolith when Skif is escaping the Circa facility? That being the only time whenever Richter physically interacts with another human. But that only solidifies the story. Skif has just gone through an extremely traumatic event at the Circa facility, coming face to face with the Wish Granter itself, seemingly going through every single death scenario that Strelok could have endured in Shadow of Chernobyl, resulting in the monolith to be reactivated, forcing New Tide back into what they swore they would never become again. Skif barely making out by the skin of his teeth, injured, traumatized, dare I say, hopeless. And just as he's at freedom's door, hope appears. Richter appears. So what if the zone knew Skif needed that last line of hope? A temporal boost. The idea that he knew he had a true friend he could trust by his side. To make it through defeating the crazed monolith fanatics that want to by any means bring an end to Skif's life. Because maybe Skif doesn't just see Richter. Maybe, like Mason, he becomes him. And when the tension rises, when the anomalies swell and the sky turns red, Richter returns, like a ghost circling a dying fire. Maybe Skif thinks he's the hero. But what if it's something else entirely? What if he's the experiment and Richter's the control variable? Maybe Richter is real, or once was, but somewhere along the way, the zone stopped needing the man and kept the myth. The zone doesn't need soldiers. It doesn't need stalkers. It needs believers. I'm Tarks. I make videos on topics and games I think are interesting. Let me know down in the comments whether you think Richter is all in Skif's head or not. Or just let me know I'm an idiot and I'm overthinking things. Either way, thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.